All right, up to you.
Yeah. So I will start giving a short introduction to my research, my PhD. Then I will describe a bit more accurately the research we have been doing here this month and previously when I came to Ireland. And then at the end I will also give an overview of dairy and my research group. So my PhD topic is about user profiling on the social semantic web. And
something is missing.
Okay.
Yeah.
You'll have to keep pressing it, I think. Fabrizio, you'll have to point it towards the projector.
Projector.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Yeah.
so just to define a user profiling, we can define as a representation of information about users. I will go quickly on this part so I won't spend much time. Basically, user profiles contain information about users, their knowledge, their context, their activities, their behavior, and their interests. So my research questions are: how can we collect and interlink all the information that we have on the social web, on all the different social media websites, and how we can merge user models that we can build on each social media website. How can we manage this information, and how can we use provenance and use trust measures on the data that we have about users and on the web of data, so on the linked data. This to improve the current personalization techniques out there. So the first challenge in this is that, as we know, the social web is a set of different isolated data silos. So all the social web spaces are disconnected to each other, so there's no interaction between the systems. And the second challenge is the web of data. If we want to use the potentialities of the web of data, the web of data is not a closed corpus, and so it's evolving, continuously evolving. It's huge, it's growing, and it's open. And the other challenge is we don't have strong and complete provenance representation on the web. So the origins of data that we have on the web for pages like, for example, Wikipedia, are not really semantically represented. So, for example, if you look at Wikipedia page, we have different type of information, and the title, the website, so, and references and links, or different contributors. So this page is the result of many actions and many activities from users. And we want to keep this information about users and about their activities in order to understand their interest, their interaction, and their profiles. And then the other challenge is, once we create user profiles for one particular user on several different platforms, we need to create these profiles in a way that they will be interoperable, so that we can exchange information across different platforms and between different users. So this is, yeah, it's a bit not like...
No.
Because of the portability issue.
Yeah, PowerPoint.
So mainly the outline of my research will be to collect information about users on different social networking platforms, represent provenance information of the activities of users on the platforms, and then analyze this data and create aggregated user profiles. So far, what I was working on, apart from the study of the state of the art, was modeling. I was focusing on wikis. So I was working on modeling the structure of wikis and enable wikis to exchange information, like not only Wikipedia but every company wikis or so on. Representing the structure semantically, the structure of wikis, we can then exchange the information across wikis and users belonging to those wikis. And so we created a semantic search browser on heterogeneous wiki systems. And then I moved to provenance on wikis, so I've done some work on the representation of provenance on wikis and Wikipedia, and the representation of provenance for the web of data on Wikipedia. So, for example, if we want to know where does a triple on Wikipedia comes from, because a triple on Wikipedia is the result of an activity from a user on Wikipedia. So we can analyze the diffs, analyze all the revisions on Wikipedia, and understand who actually edited a specific triple on Wikipedia, and represent provenance of Wikipedia triples. And then after provenance, I moved on user profiling, which is more my topic now, and the work that I've done with Pavan now, and this month and when he came to Ireland. So the first work was about representing user profiles as an aggregation of user profiles from different social platforms, and manage the privacy of those user profiles. So if a user has a user profile and then wants to share this user profile with other people, then he can manage the privacy of this profile, just share some parts of the profile with certain type of people and so on.
1 second, I think Win is working on similar stuff, which is the ESWC paper. It's more on the RDF to be privately exchanged, so that is privacy aware, and he's doing it on user profiles. Yeah, privacy preference manager. So they use that to share it.
Yeah.
So it is something like policy management to manage the policy.
Yeah. So the other person I'm working on with is Owen Sakko in Derry, and he's working on privacy and trust. And he's planning to apply policies on that model. So basically, so far we represent the profiles using RDF, and then the PPO, which is the privacy preference ontology, and the system, which is a privacy preference manager. They will represent the privacy policies, the privacy specification on those profiles. And then it's up to the user to decide what he wants to share and what not. So we don't apply automatic rules on that data. He's planning to do that. And then, yeah, I will go straight to the work we have done with Pawan here. So it's about personalization and filtering of social web stream. So we focused on filtering the Twitter stream, but this method, this architecture can be applied to any social web stream, not only for Twitter. So for this, as we know, Twitter is growing and growing, it's huge, there's a lot of information going on, and we want to avoid this information overload that we have from Twitter. So, and also, if we see users started to follow many people, so even more than 2,000 people, so when you follow 2,000 people that they are tweeting constantly, then it's a bit difficult to catch up with what they are saying and find useful, interesting information. If we look at Facebook, you have your status messages, so we can just sort them by time or by top stories. And top stories is the users we interact most, and on Facebook, or the number of likes every post has. So it's not about the topic of the post, so we cannot filter about the topics of the post. And if we want to search for on Twitter, for example, we search for Apple, then it's keyword matching. So we won't find all the tweets maybe we wanted about Apple, the company. So our motivation is at this stage, how many people should I follow? Is it really necessary to follow so many people to get the useful information? And if I'm receiving exactly complete information from Twitter, because I'm following just a subset of users, and maybe I'm missing many other useful messages that other users that I don't know they are posting. And once we want to create a system that personalizes a Twitter stream, then how can we tell the system what are my interests and what I'm interested on quickly without requiring the user to input all the interest and all the details? So the approach is the user has his own user profile which will be built automatically. So, for example, he's interested in football and Apple. Then as soon as a tweet on Twitter come up and contains, for example, iPhone, using the potentialities of the web of data, we can identify iPhone as a product of Apple or part of Apple as a concept, and we can filter this information and deliver it directly to the user.
Maybe I missed something. How do you identify which data set in LOD to look at?
So far we are only using Wikipedia.
Okay. Because, I mean, if somebody is like remote possibilities, tweeting about some weird biological organ, then the chances of finding it in the life sciences data set is higher than finding it in Wikipedia. So you will exclude that, I suppose.
Also, quality of data in other thing other than Wikipedia may be better, right? So if you are talking about music, maybe Music Brains is a better bubble than the Wikipedia to use there. And so I think students here are working on that issue. So which is the more relevant component of LOD that can be used as a knowledge base? So it may be interesting to.
So yeah, it will be possible to use something like Void that describes the data set and maybe categorize some interest and then match them to some data sets.
So I'm not sure if Void is the thing which will help you out, because based on my exposure to Void, it's very statistical in nature in terms of the fact that it reports how many triples are there, how many distinct properties are there, and stuff like that. So
Less about topics.
it's less about topics, it's less about domains, it's more about what are the numbers of the data set. So you probably, I don't know, need something else.
Yeah, it's not more, I think, semantic or domain specific itself. However, when you do this, let's just talk about Wikipedia. I think will be, if you write a paper, I think people will look for saying, how is this going to be better than statistical method? Meaning, there are plenty of people who can, analyze the corpus of, if there is an appropriate corpus, and they say, well, iPhone and Apple are related. If you are interested, that's what all search engines do all the time. And how would you argue that use of this particular use of Wikipedia or a semantic approach is better than IR approach?
Our first argument towards it would come at the generation of user profiles, where we tend to decide on whether the user is interested in a particular instance, or he might be interested in a complete category of a Wikipedia, stating that, okay, fine, you have been tweeting about stuff from Apple, like iPhone, iPod, 3-4 more things, so I will generalize it, saying that you are more interested in Apple products, depending on the number of times you have come up with instances, depending on number of time you have used distinct instances of that category. So that is one of the first semantic approach which will help us decide whether the person is interested in a category or an instance. And the next one would be, once this is done, once we annotate tweets, we get to know that the tweets like classification. We can classify that, okay, this tweet is based on music, or this tweet is based on academics. So at that point of time, we can actually visualize, stating that, okay, if the person wants At this point of time, I'm interested in only stuff which is related to music. So he can get tweets only stuff which is related to that. So, like the one which we had discussed. So that would be helpful.
My main point here is that in evaluation, people always want to have some comparison. And comparing with if it is possible to compare with a non-semantic technique, maybe some use of vector machine or other thing, you want to do that as a baseline. If you are going to write particularly comprehensive or high quality conference paper, if you don't do that, and I mean, to the extent that your paper is reviewed by only semantic web people, it will be okay. But the moment it goes to, let's say, suppose you send to CIKM, then there are a lot of people there that are not semantic web people, and they would want to say, just the same way as our LOD proposal went to people that are not semantic web people, and they say, well, there's all this NLP work, you didn't compare. So I think that's what it is. Fundamentally, all these years, Google never used semantics. Now it is starting to use it, but and then could do a lot of things.
Right.
So they want to, people would like to see how yours is better than more traditional techniques.
Yeah, since we have started right now, we don't know whether our technique is better than what we thought. So first we'll evaluate. We have just come up with the system now, so we need to start evaluating it. That is when we'll discuss about evaluation.
Maybe I can take this question offline as well, or I can discuss it later. But, so the Reuters API, it also tries to link entities to their LOD instances. So I don't know how does it differ from just this particular aspect? Because what it can do is it can find that if you parse this piece of text, it will tell you that iPhone is the DBpedia iPhone. So, I mean, that's something which you need to consider as well.
It's not really different to what we are doing, right?
Say that again.
It's not really different to what we are doing. So
yes.
We analyze the text and we identify iPhone. It's related to the DBpedia.
Exactly, and they do the exact same thing.
Okay.
So you might want to have a look at it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the other hand, I think your focus is on after you identify what you do, right? Is that your focus, or is your focus identifying iPhone? Your focus is more towards...
I think we could probably let him proceed.
Yeah.
So it will become clear.
Well, one thing will be also the speed of this process, because this has to be done in real time. So this inference. And so we have DBpedia categories, for example, loaded locally, so you can query the categories to be faster. Because for every tweet we annotate the entities, and then we do this matching in real time. So that will be, if we use too much inference on the web of data, that will be that idea. Or we might also use same as .org, which is growing now, and define same as entities on the web data, and then do some other analysis on those entities.
Can I add to it? We are not concentrating on annotations.
That's what I said.
Right.
Just this specific aspect of it.
Okay, because
this specific aspect is annotation.
Yes, and even he is doing annotations during user profiles. That we are actually outsourcing it to Alchemy, because he had a evaluation of which API works better.
Okay.
So we are trying to make sure that there is an infrastructure to do it in real time, and you are relating the tweet to the user profiles.
Okay.
So.
Rate limited also, right?
Yeah, so we are using Zamanta, and we can use Alchemy or any OpenCalais or something. They are rate limited.
So I had also evaluated once the different comparison between services, and that the thing was with the rate limits only. I think how many requests you can send, because you guys are trying to do on the fly. So
yeah, so that will be only for the profile generation. That service. here for this annotation we use Spotlight. It doesn't have a rate. And we asked the Manta for an extension of the limit, and they allowed us to use 100,000 queries per day. Something like that. So far it was, but we didn't try with many users.
So, I was probably going to save this question for the end, but since so many questions have been asked, might as well raise it now. It seems like the void stems from, maybe there's a slide that's missing. What's the fundamental research, what's the fundamental problem that your work is addressing? And a follow-up question to that would be, what's the fundamental research problem that you're addressing? I think if we sort of knew what the fundamental research problem was, things like, resolving entities to, or text to entities and background knowledge would not be a focus if that's not the focus of the work, right? So what's the fundamental research problem?
The research problem would be how is possible to filter a string like this
With stream.
and to avoid information overload, because we don't want to be overloaded by messages. So, and this depends on the profiling part. So how specific the profiles should be in order to don't have the user be like overloaded.
If you go back one or two slides, there was a slide, page up, yeah. Page up.
Back.
Yeah. There was a,
So it's semantic filtering.
yeah, this one, right?
Yeah. So the profiling part is important because if we have too many interests, too many specific interests, then the user will be again overloaded. And we need to really find the few interests, few entities that the user is interested in. And these interests are evolving over the time, so they are not constant. So we need to update this constantly. And well, this is not really a business question.
So let's let me be sure I understand fundamentally again what's the research or just what's the problem that you're addressing? Is it semantic filtering of streaming of data for personalization in one sense?
Yeah.
Semantic filtering.
Yeah.
Okay.
How frequently you update this profile?
We have to decide based on user evaluation. I mean, we just have the system running, so we create a system that users maybe can use, and you will see a demo, so it's not really user-friendly. Then we will evaluate it and decide. So, yeah, so this is the architecture, well, something a bit more, this is not really happy. So, then the semantic filter, and so first we will go to the profile generator. So the user subscribes to the semantic hub. This is the main central point of the architecture. And subscribe to the hub, and then the user generates his profile logging in on Twitter and Facebook. So we analyze the tweets and Facebook activities. Then we generate the profile, and we store the profile in RDF in attribute store. Then here is the Twitter stream or any social web stream in input. So we use the annotation that will turn to actual, and we store the topics of the annotation in RDF. Then we update the RSS feed. This will notify the hub again. The hub fetches all the updates and checks if the the profiles of the users match with these interests annotated from the tweet, and then push the update, because here we use PubSub above, so push product. yeah, so this is the use case. So if we have a tweet, we already described this. So if we have a tweet, then we can annotate the tweet with entities on Wikipedia, and then, well, from here we will get subscriber, and that matches the interest we have from the profiles to the annotations, and then we push the updates to the users. So for the user profiling part, the way is to collect information from different platforms, integrate them, and model the information of users, then generate a unique user profile. So the profile will then help in personalization or recommendations. This is the generic approach. And more specifically, the user profiling part will be the authentication and service-specific data collection from Twitter and Facebook. Then we generate profiles for each platform, and we generate them using semantic representation. We keep track of provenance of data for each profile, and we enrich the information using Wikipedia. So we try to find out if the interests are only about one specific entity on Wikipedia, or if the interests are about the whole category containing a different set of entities on Wikipedia. And then we generate this profile, and this profile is the result of the aggregation of two specific platform-specific user profiles. This will be then represented in RDF and stored in the RDF store. Yes.
Just one question about it. So the user tells you that these are my profiles. It's not that you go and figure out that,
No.
oh, this guy's
Yeah.
and
The user has to go authenticate
and then
log in.
say, okay, this
Yeah.
is my Twitter, this is my Facebook.
Yeah.
Okay.
Especially because Facebook is most of the time.
I see. You have to give specific, explicit
Yeah.
permission for that. Right.
I mean, it's like you have to just log in.
Right.
So we in this slide we can also mention about our conversation with TK and how we.
Yeah, so while I was here, we had a useful conversation with TK, and it was about deciding when we generate user profiles about users, we want to find out if it's more useful to represent a user interest using a category that contains a different set of topics and concepts, or just a specific concept. For example, semantic web as a concept belongs to World Wide Web, the category World Wide Web. And if the user has interests in his profile that are about semantic web, RDF, RDFA, XML, and so on, they all belong to the category World Wide Web. So in this case, he has many interests belonging to the category, and we can just take the category to represent user interests. And so then the matching of the interest will be on the category and on all the instances belonging to the category. If we otherwise don't find that the user is interested on many concepts, many entities belonging to a category, then we just keep the single concepts, the single instances. So we found out a sort of mathematical model for deciding this. And we use also the time, so we have a time decay function to give more weight to the interests that are more recent and not the older one. And we also analyze the time position of the interest on the user history. So if they are clustered in one specific point of time of the user history, or if they are spread along the whole time, then the weight of the interests will be different.
So is it a mathematical model in a sense? Is it like a Bayesian model that you're using?
No, we use a system of thresholds, more or less, and we use logarithmic function to understand.
Based on the number of entities.
Yeah. So I think, yeah, maybe I have some other slides about that later, but we don't have time. And we also have to show you the
If it works. No, it will work.
So, yeah, to summarize, we extract data from Twitter and Facebook, we analyze the user posts and the Facebook likes and posts and videos and so on, and check-ins and the profiling information on Facebook. And so the interests will be then generated from this. We use identity, named identity recognition, as we said, in Manta. And we give weights, so we rank all the interests, and then we want to keep, for the personalization, to use only the top interests. And yeah, everything supports this.
I have one question. How do you weigh between the interest what user mentions in his profile, like it's my interest, versus the what you derive from the data? Like incoming tweets are coming, and in that from such data you spot the things and you find out the interest. So how do you compare these two or use them?
We say if the interest is explicit, so explicitly set by the user, like on Facebook, he likes something,
That's
then
activity. That's the second part. That's not the first part. First part is in your about you actually
or in the,
go
you mean in the profile
explicitly.
information. Like I'm interested in, and then you list all your interests. Yeah, so
Same
even
like
that,
Twitter.
yeah, even that will have a high weight. If it's then inferred from the analysis with the entity recognition, then the weight will be lower.
Yeah, in
And
fact,
then the weight also depends on the time of the interest. So all the activities, they have a time recorded, so we can rank them using the time.
Good.
So for the other part of the architecture, probably all of you have seen the advanced presentation about this architecture. There are some modifications. If you want to say something,
Okay.
otherwise we can. Yeah.
I think I've spoken about the same thing quite a number of times, so I'll just walk through it quickly, which is it.
Point it. Point it. Yeah. Page down.
Yeah. So we had the transformation of tweets into RDF, which is what Twarkle was doing. We had that using the Twitter streaming API, but we have now transformed it to we have now used Twitter Storm, which is parallelized computing for any streaming data. So probably it is better to call it a Storm, because we can also use Wikipedia Stream for doing the same thing, where the data can be transformed into RDF, and that is one thing what happened in the past month. And the other thing was I hope I don't need to explain the same thing, like what all Twitter provides. Twitter has actually extended its the metadata it provides in terms of URLs and the original URLs. It spots the URLs and the original URLs, and also some entities in it. So we have also transformed it using the schema or the vocabulary in terms of FOF and SHA. And then, leaving that, the pops up above, the Semantic Hub had a bug, and it did not work on Python 2.7. That was fixed. So, and then the whole system is integrated. I'll be showing you the demo later.
Yeah. So you can look at the data.
Oh no, once you're done with this, then you have to
Wait, in the system.
then you can still.
In the system. Okay. So yeah, this was the part of the work that I was doing this month. And now I'll just give a short overview of the unit and dairy. So in dairy, I'm part of the unit social software and led by John Breslin. And so we have 2 postdocs, actually 3. One is starting on Monday. So we have Alex Passan, which is a sort of co-leader. Now he has less time because he's working on a startup. And Maciej Dabrowski, and this is the new postdoc. And then we have 9 PhD students, and we have very interdisciplinary collaboration for e-government or journalism exercise. We will see an overview of the people who work there. So the students are David Crowley, he's working on citizen sensors, and sensors are using mobile phones, smartphones, and annotate and use semantic web technologies on those smartphones. And he might be interesting for people working here because he has some topics. And Ted Leakey is working on exercise and analyzing how social web, social networking platforms, they influence exercise and healthcare and fitness. And then we have Antonio, who's from the engineering department, and he's working on healthcare and analyzing variability rate of health. And then me, and then Łukasz is working on e-government and e-participation.
Let me see that. What is the heart rate variability? What is it doing?
He's a new student. He's from the engineering department, so he's not really in Derry all the time. He's in the University of Galway, which is associated to Derry. And he's, I don't know much about what he's doing, honestly, because I don't see him. And
I don't think so. It doesn't. It's not like very web thing. It is just. It's more of algorithmic thing, right?
Yeah.
So
no, he's not very into web. And not even semantic web. So then Łukasz is working on e-government, on social platforms, and Owen Sacco is the person I was mentioning before. He's working on trust and privacy and preference managers for the semantic web, and he's now collaborating with the US government. And Mary Boran, she's a new PhD student. She will work on journalism and linkage scientific data. Jody, she's working on argumentations, argumentative discussions, and how to represent the argumentation, the discussions that are on the web, how to fetch useful information from the discussion of users on the web. And Miriam, she might also be interesting for some of you. She's working on the Spitfire project. It's a project about sensor data, linked sensor data, so she's working on linked data and sensors. And she's supervised by Michael Auserwas and John Gray. These are past, graduated past students. So Sheila, now she's working in a startup in Ireland, and she did a thesis on mining users' activities on the social web, mining also user interests. And Craig King, he was working on the tagging, ontology on tags on the social web. All this was the creator together with John of the Shock project and the Shock ontology for representing the social networks using semantics. And Gerard was a master, he did his master's there. He's now working in a company. So this is the dairy structure, the whole dairy structure, so not only my unit. So my unit is this one, social software, and it's part of the big stream semantic collaboration. So the other part of the semantic collaboration is led by Siegfried Henschuh, and they are working on more on collaborative application on the desktop, so less on the web. So they have semantic emails, and they work on the semantic desktop that is integrated in Kubuntu.
In Web Science Summer School, Siegfried, he had given a talk about analysis of social data, and in the presentation, the first video he showed was about Twitter's, and then the video which Ashu had done spelling mistakes, I was spotting spelling mistakes there.
So these are the main research streams. So there's the semantic search, they have reasoning and data-intensive infrastructures, and there's the information mining, and they are less on the semantic side of they're more on information retrieval and natural language processing. And then semantic middleware, they are working on sensors and sensor detectors. And so these are the more research-oriented streams, and these are the more applied type of research units. So there's a government one, healthcare, life sciences, green, IT, and then everything would be aimed at applying the research and commercialize the possible outcomes. So thanks, that's it. If you have other questions, or we can go for the demo.
So, what do you call in terms of streaming data? Who are the people working at?
Dan works on streaming data, right? Sensor data.
Streaming sensor data.
He's a PhD student there, and he's supervised by Manfred Hauswirth, and Josiane Pereira.
So they're in the last thing you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
Between the
Yeah. So Manfred Hauswirth is the leader.
Who else works on streaming data?
So these are the clients. Again, as he had mentioned, it's not user friendly as of now. So this is the hub running, and this is on localhost 8080. It is based on App Engine, and just okay. We have generated few profiles.
So that was the proposal that contains all the profiles that the user will generate. And then
I saw something like some entities.
So yeah, I will just show that.
Yeah.
These are done yesterday, so
Yeah.
That's mine.
that's okay. I'm not sending you an email. So the subscription is done. So here we just get to know that each person, like 549, that is his tweet ID, and streaming Pawan is mine, and we have different interests, probably is anyone interested to put up their profiles?
Is it Twitter?
Twitter and Facebook.
That's not my
I already have a promote the username.
Oh,
that's in the
So
I
how,
thought you were asking the Twitter.
how would you fetch, say,
Facebook.
Without knowing his ID on Twitter or whatever.
Yeah, I'm showing that to you. Now.
Okay.
So that is their user name and password.
Okay, so after you log in, then you create a. I see one.
If you want to do scalability test, you should ask for him.
What do you mean with scalability? No, I don't think so. It is that big for scalability test.
You can try mine if you want.
No, I don't want to try scalability test now.
No, it's not. It's not a scalability test. No. I don't think it's that much. But, yeah. Moderately active. Sara.
I'm the most inactive person on social network.
Then why will we see yours?
I don't think you even exist on social. You deleted your account.
Exactly. So I don't exist. So that's why I didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
Best case scenario, exactly. Optimize performance.
So this is how you subscribe to the system, and we'll have a call back from over there, right? Yeah, right. Thanks. And then once we start AJ, we will
Right.
come up to the.
Oh, sign in for
Yeah, if you
Twitter.
want to shout out your password.
Standard is top secret, but at least it's secret.
That's nice. This is where you needed the Google App Engine, please.
No, this is completely on PHP. So the
Oh,
Google App
okay.
Engine is for the clients and the pubs up above. So
I see.
Facebook sign. Huh? No, Twitter is very sure. I have no posts on Facebook, but you will have explicit likes and
You need to use those.
so I think I don't think so. It is all
We'll just get to know all your secrets. All the girls.
But she's not.
Oh, it's a right or TD.
Right or did you?
I'm very official, professional.
Facebook is.
Okay.
Okay, yes, forgotten.
That's why we login.
No, nothing. Yeah. Pramod is trying out the
What
system.
profile is getting us?
Yeah.
enough to remember the password.
We won't stay and store your data.
Yeah,
Okay,
please
good.
don't do- Hello. Hey. You're pressing a line for me. Now it will generate a profile of your interests.
Not now.
Yeah,
This is the authentication.
the Facebook is doing it.
So you have to get.
Yeah, that's all.
Should I hit allow again?
It says waiting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Your mom. Yeah. So you don't worry. Yeah.
Okay.
Callback is for the hub. So it will push updates, right? So it needs a callback to. Okay, it will take a minute or two. Probably his posts are less, it might take less than.
You can go in there because
Do you know your Twitter screen name?
Yeah. It's PRAMOD-ATI. Yeah, that's I don't think we'll find anything.
Category.
I didn't see. You said you used a log function. I didn't understand that part.
yeah, so to understand
Okay.
to decide if we have to take the category or just the interest, we use this logarithmic function that changes the threshold that we for our decision. So for small categories that contain a few interests, then you need less interests in your profile to go up to the category. If the category is very big, then you need many more interests in your profile to decide to take the category.
Okay. Okay, I'll show the top interests for you. The damned band.
Lok Sabha is there.
Who's
Music,
Sonia Singer, man?
iPhone.
Computing manager, iPhone, music genre. These are just the top ones, but there will be many more.
Chemical plant?
Bharati.
Because I use my Twitter account for all experiments. Self-code experiments. Self-code project. We tweeted about some chemical plant and things.
Right.
That's
So-
showing different things.
So it is true then. Yeah? So I mean, true meaning if somebody is looking at you through the social media lens,
Right.
then they'll probably see that, right?
Right.
Yeah, so for the categories, social media and smartphones,
Hmm.
we will provide filtering and personalization based on all the interests belonging to that category.
I see.
Why are the characters showing up? Why is it showing up? Maybe I did something. You like deleted
Which one? Bharatiya Janata Party,
No,
right?
I am the character.
I have a question. I don't know how much plan you guys have made with respect to writing a paper. How are you guys going to evaluate it besides usability studies? Like basically asking users, do you think it makes sense?
Yeah, that's the first idea the first thing we will do, asking users. And then probably the other way is to compare this to other services that they say they provide personalized fields. So there's
There's a difference. I mean, because what at least he was showing on the screen, it's showing your interest based on the profile as generated from the LED, whereas the personalized tweet service will be directly sending you tweets. So
That's where the annotation is.
In out of among these interests also, how will you rank?
I think that's the rank.
That's the rank. So
The
they,
social.
yeah, they have like the 100 odd
Yeah, there are a lot
things
of
that
them.
they pick, but they have the top 10 or top 20 or
Yeah,
something.
top 20.
Yeah.
And and we also have the weights stored in RDF, but not on this
Uh-huh.
endpoint. We have the weights and the provenance of information. And we don't store everything on this.
Two or three.
The evaluation is also tricky. Well, we can see what users are retweeting and assume those tweets are interesting for the users, and then compare those tweets with the tweets we provide to the user. But again, that's a limited subset of it.
yeah, because I don't think you can generate any kind of recall figures. I mean, the only thing you can probably do is precision.
Even that is subjective, right? Subjective.
Yes.
Yes.
I was, before this, for just the user profiling, it was a bit more simple. And I ran a user-based evaluation,
Okay.
and with 22 users. So I was going to users and asking them questions about the interests. And I was asking them to put like a list of interests they were thinking, or they were expecting from the profiling algorithm. So from that, I was kind of calculating a recall, but it's not really accurate.
Yeah.
Because users, they don't really know what are all the interests.
If somebody who has been
Yeah.
reading like 10,000 tweets or something, you'll not remember at all like what he was talking about. I mean, when he was 16, he was dancing to Backstreet Boys, and now he's ashamed of it. So,
Yeah. That's,
Yeah.
have you published any paper related to this? I mean, like I know you have like a couple of journal papers. So how did you, if it was related, how did you present the evaluation in those papers?
So the profiling algorithm was present. I submitted a paper to ESWC now. So I just got the reviews, the comments.
What does it look like?
It looks good.
Okay.
Well, one reviewer, I think he got the wrong paper version. So because I submitted a version which was not the final one, and then before the deadline I resubmitted the paper. So I think the reviewer got that version. So the review is completely wrong for that reviewer. The other two reviewers, they don't go much into details. Their reviews are very generic and they are quite okay.
And that's the one where you had 22 users.
Yeah.
Okay. And
I was evaluating the profiles. I was generating profiles just with Wikipedia resources or profiles with only Wikipedia categories. Then trying to understand what are the type of profiles more useful.
You are getting few tweets. So
You are ready for evaluation.
okay, so what are the next steps you think?
No, I mean just few examples you showed. You're going to do this.
Yeah, this is just the system running. So we need to collect tweets and then we have to evaluate.
No, the point is that if Ohio, I think this is a difficult problem. If you found that he's interested in Ohio and then you showed these tweets that you found, people will say, I don't care about this. The reason is that Ohio is such a broad
topic. Yeah, we got that like yesterday we were looking at it and then because even like India is a broad topic. So what we thought was Pramod gave a good suggestion about the visualization. So when we are visualizing it, for evaluation we need to think about another thing. But in terms of visualizing it, if we have categories and if we have 4 or 5 frames based on what categories you are interested in.
The issue is that when you are capturing a